Welcome back, everybody, to the Neuroinclusion Conversations from Across the Pond and Beyond podcast. I'm Pasha Marlowe here with Atif Chaudhary again, my dear friend, and we are going to talk about whatever comes to our minds and our hearts about neuroinclusion that also meets the moment of the day. And how are you today, Atif?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm all right. Neurodiversity wise, I'm pretty good. I am. I couldn't feel more across the pond and beyond. Like what, it's been a I know we talk about it a lot, but it's been a hell of a political week for the world and neurodiversity. We'll get to that. Um,
Yes.
but crikey, they must have really wanted that ballroom, huh?
He really wants that ballroom. Yes, and more and more. Yeah, it's when we record every couple weeks, so much happens, it seems in the world in between. But yeah, but on a good note, I've been up all night because in Italy there was a organization that wanted me to present, and at 2 a.m. my time, US time, and I suppose 8 a.m. their time, we logged on and we did a couple hours of a neuroinclusion workshop and training. And I just thought it was very interesting, as you've mentioned, the differences in cultures and how advanced or aware or mature people are in the process of neuroinclusion and how very basic I needed to be in terms of terminology and definitions, but
Yeah,
also how interested they were and how at the core even if they didn't have the knowledge of the language or all the neurodiversity affirming practices, they had a culture of care and compassion for humans that I don't see often. And so I said, you're already doing so much of the work, that the specific practices and wording isn't there is less important than if you're treating people, fairly and offering support depending on their needs and believing them. So despite it being 2 a.m., it was a bright light. And now I'm in my car because I have no Wi-Fi at home. So I might look and sound different than I did in other episodes, but I'm hoping it will last and work well. So thank you for your flexibility.
yeah, that's okay. And thank you for your battery. I hope it holds out. So if we lose you, folks, it's just okay. It's just a battery thing, you know, and it's a life thing, right? We all go through these things. Uh,
Mhm.
I personally like that we're not perfect or slick, but we're perfectly sincere, and that's what we
It's
often do.
on brand. It's on
Yeah,
brand.
yeah, totally, totally. So Pasha, I wanted to check in with you just as ever from the US context to beyond, how you're feeling about, what has been going on and how it may apply to the world or neurodiversity or even systems, whatever you feel.
Well, the recent drama was the supposed attempted assassination. I say supposed because we don't even know if it was real. And
Yeah,
what a statement that our first reaction was, is this even real? So it's a bit like we're living in my country in a bit of a simulation or alternative reality where we have to check in with our minds and hearts and brains and nervous systems constantly to say, I know everyone's saying this happened, but does it make sense that it happened? And what do we really think? And honestly, there's just zero trust in leadership, in people in power, in the news. If I saw it happen with my own eyes, I might not believe it anymore. So it's rather unsettling. And I very much enjoyed. I was in Switzerland for a week prior, and coming back to this, the difference. Obviously, there's not as much socio-political upheaval in Switzerland, but the difference in my nervous system was dramatic. Returning to this country, the United States, from Switzerland, and so I'm feeling it. Yeah.
wow. I just want to add a couple of things. My brain just goes into as you deliciously allow me to, but it just goes all over the place. But you're we're talking about whether the most, I guess, the leader of the country is ever believable. I know we're talking about a particular leader, I suppose.
Mhm.
But isn't it weird, right? Because if you look to your leaders and everything single thing, and this doesn't have to apply to a president, it could apply to your offices, your workplaces.
Mhm.
What does your system do if every single thing you feel is that maybe someone is a narcissist and they're your line manager, and
Mm-hmm.
he or she is just never sincere in what they're saying to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to express your needs. And if your constant behavior or your constant feeling is disbelief,
Mm-hmm.
that would be natural, right? That would actually be fair. And then
Yeah.
we're going back to this is that it's the constant feeling, even though we're talking about a country where, Lincoln was killed in a in a theater, and John F. Kennedy was killed in a car.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually happened. Presidential
Mm-hmm.
murders have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And assassinations have happened across American leaders all the time. And yet the immediate reflex is, hmm,
Mm-hmm.
do you know, hmm, that
What's
ear
behind
doesn't,
this?
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I generally didn't notice that when the ear thing happened. I thought people really took it as this is real.
Yeah.
Um, and I suspect people will probably think differently now after this one.
Yes. And it's interesting because when I no longer trust leadership or government or authority, and I distrust it more than ever, frankly. What that does, who can I trust? It comes up
And
in my
yeah,
mind. And unfortunately, this all over the last couple weeks has coincided with the very disturbing news of probably more now, but like 80 million men looking at this website about sexual assault. Do you know what I'm talking about?
no, no, say more.
Oh, it's almost too disgusting to share. But what happened was there's a online basically course on how to sexually abuse or rape your partner, married or not, when they're asleep. And 80 million men at the time of last week, so it's more now, clicked on it. And and I thought that's more men than live in the country I'm in right now, Switzerland, where I was. I
Ahead.
thought, and then I honestly felt like again, who can I trust? And it just was very unsettling. The numbers. And I think about that only because, I think about the numbers of people who are still supporting Trump, the numbers of people who are so violent. It's just shocking to me. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I am still surprised. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, that was sobering, and I just assumed everybody knew about it.
No, 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 it's okay. It is sobering, but then that's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah,
how that
yeah,
impacted my nervous system. Not
yeah.
just
Yeah.
mine, but most every woman I've talked to. Um,
Look, yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, no, massively. Do you know, like, I haven't said, I hope I haven't said this before, but I'm aware of it. I'm conscious of my life. I'm 51. And I don't know a single woman in the world who can't tell me a story
mhm,
about something. Do you know? That, the walk home, the double walk, the holding the keys in the hand,
mhm,
just being ready, the
mhm,
thinking about what time,
mhm.
and things that happen in childhood they can barely say, right? I
Yes.
don't know a single woman who hasn't got a story to tell. Not
No,
one.
no,
But I don't know a single man who says, yeah, that's me. Do you know?
no.
Do you
Right.
know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's interesting, right? And who are the perpetrators and abusers and maybe is there a lack of understanding of what is abuse or assault uh in general? But but I will say, just from a therapist and mental health point of view, the result outside of it being quite damaging to our nervous systems and our hearts is
Yeah.
that I'm talking to young women or people childbearing age who have said to me in the last week that they love their daughters so much they don't want to birth them, that they want to keep them in their hearts. They want to keep them in their womb and in their spirit, and they don't want to birth them, and they're deciding to not have children. And I've heard that many times from my clients since that report. and it was very impactful to people. It was just one of many, many, many moments of truth about men in power taking advantage of women.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I'm sure many of those listening, watching right now, um, you know, the French lady. I hope I'm saying her name correctly, and correct me if I am saying it wrong. Is it Giselle Pelicot?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely Gazelle, and I cannot
Giselle
recall her last name, but
Pelicot. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
but she says it. She says, you know, shame must change sides.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like that. It isn't on women. It is not on women to feel the shame. It has to be on men. Do you know?
Mm.
But you
Hmm.
just, you know. Yeah, how do you find faith in the world? And people do, right? I mean, you find faith in the world, and the world is a much kinder place than we know because that kindness hides itself so often, do you know? But
Hmm.
it shows up in the case of urgency, or it shows up in the randomness of strangers.
Hmm.
But it's also a much darker place than we know
Hmm.
because, you know, from what you're telling me, and Giselle's Pellicot's story is about was being drugged by a husband
Yes.
consistently.
I,
And
I'm afraid that story probably inspired this website.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely not on my radar, but wow. Um, and it's okay, you know. Um, yeah, how do you build trust and love again?
Mm.
Eh?
Hmm. The circles get smaller and smaller, and I lean into the relationships I I've known for a long time, the relationships that have kind of stood the test of time, and I also have to, listen to my gut and my instinct. I feel very safe with you. I feel very safe with some men, not a lot of men. Um, but I do think it's contributing to the isolation and the loneliness we're seeing because people are more anxious just in general now, not
Mm.
just women. Like, I think people are more anxious to be outside in the world and away from what they know to be true and what they know to be safe. And so I feel like that's having a greater impact on our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I know not in the context of, I mean, misogyny hurts men, and that's controversial, but people, I want you to hear it. It stops us being better people. In fact, it stops us from being better men. Do you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And so, whilst we're not the first target of it, or certainly not the worst, our liberation is dependent on us playing a role in recognizing it and our power in it. Do you know?
Yeah.
Um, but wow, I mean, it's really quite something that I think about the interview that happened yesterday. I've forgotten the lady's name. She was very amazing, where she refers to Donald Trump, and brings up the conversation of his leadership of
Oh,
and children and really grotesque things. You guys can watch it yourselves. But him to actually acknowledge it, and I was watching that thinking, in years to come, this will be a film.
uh-huh.
Yeah, this interview will be a film. I'd really implore people to watch it. But if you're not, you've seen it anyway, because I imagine it's going, it's quite hysterical. What is happening is Trump outright denying the worst of human attributes and saying, I am not a pedophile, I am not a rapist of children. And this will be made into a film, but I think more than that, our great grandchildren will struggle to understand. Did you have a president that this was happening and there were leaders hiding it and there were these and such and there were governors. I know this is really political, folks, for our podcast, right? But we're not saying anything that isn't out on the Epstein files or being demanded of the Epstein files. Um, and I suppose I'm going to bring it back to neurodiversity because anyone who's
Good.
may
Please.
take objection to what we're saying may say, what's this got to do with neurodiversity? It has everything to do with it.
Mhm.
It has everything to do with how we feel safe in our civil societies, the leaders we vote for, the leaders that we have to endure,
Mhm.
the role modeling our children see, you know, and whether we ourselves are ever mentally safe wherever we are, you know, it has
Mhm.
everything to it. And for you to say, if I'm not, I'm going to be sure I didn't get that wrong, that you felt safer in Switzerland than your own home.
Oh, by far, by far. Yes.
That is the point of this podcast, right? Across the pond and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Pasha, why? What was the key distinction that you found?
It was interesting because um I'm ADHD and autistic. So first of all, my autism very much appreciated that when they say a train arrives at 9:07 and leaves at 9:07, it leaves at 9:07 to the dot. That was very, very relaxing for my nervous system. I could count on it. It was predictable. It was certain. I could trust it. Like just from a level of trust. I
Yeah,
loved it. I loved that. That was interesting. Also, I I found it interesting. I jumped off a mountain and paraglided. I flew through the air like a bird over the Alps with my son, and I trusted this man who I'd never met other than knowing his name, Simon, and he said,
yeah,
"Just keep running." And I said, "Do you
yeah.
want to talk to me about safety or security or a backup plan?" He said, "No, I've just been doing this for a very long time. Just run and
Mm,
fly and enjoy."
mm.
And I thought, weird. I did, and I trusted him, and I felt okay. It was so interesting to me. I said, why is that? And partly, I think the infrastructure there is set up to be reliable, uh, clear, safe, quiet, like just quiet.
Mm.
Quiet in the restaurants, quiet in the trains, quiet traffic. Nobody's honking their horn here within a minute of touching down in Boston in the United States. I would, honking sirens, just like overstimulation. So that was just really helpful. The other end of it, just for what it's worth, as a person who has a lot of sensory issues, I was terribly bothered by the amount of smoking, cigarette smoking there in every street and in every restaurant outside. I just found that challenging. That was the only thing I really felt quite challenged by. But had it not been for the smoking, I probably would have just stayed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, smoking in a restaurant is what we grew up with, but
Oh,
I find it really repugnant. Yeah, it's like I find it weird. Like, why would someone go to such effort to make a nice meal and you can't taste it because people are smoking and they allow that?
and I was, 8,000 feet up in the air on a terrace outside, like
Uh,
eating a hamburger, looking at the
yeah,
Alps. And people are just all around me smoking. I'm thinking, this is so strange. We're breathing in the
yeah,
freshest,
yeah.
cleanest air possible. That's why I'm here. So it made me mad. But
Yeah.
that was
No,
my only complaint.
I get that. I never understood why a restaurant would allow people to smoke, not because of the smoking rules, but because you want people to taste the food. You know, that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's brilliant. And did being in Switzerland as an American, like I don't know, I'm going back to the 90s, but I know Canadians used to put the Canadian flag on their bags to show that they're Canadians.
Uh-huh.
Uh, is there a difference? Are Americans getting any kind of
Yes.
heat?
We said we were Canadian as much as possible to avoid
Yeah.
conversation as well as hate, frankly. Um,
Mm,
Unfortunately, it did not work on the trains because you have to show so much identification and your birth date is on there. And we do month, date, year. So they
yeah.
could tell we were American. And I paid just hundreds of dollars one day to ride these trains. And there was one little leg of the train trip that was maybe 5 minutes. I could see the station. And I purchased the ticket incorrectly so that it was the station before rather than the correct station, 5 minutes out of 5 hours of a train. And they
Yeah.
charged me $100, 90 Swiss. Uh, because I made a mistake. But before she charged me, she says, "Ugh, American." I'm like, "Oh, I'm certain that that did not help because it was such an innocent mistake." And I don't know if that's what contributed to it, but I ended up feeling a lot of embarrassment and shame, not just because I made the mistake, but because of this. I've been running through that in my mind, this like tone of voice she had, "Ugh, American." And in a store in one of the towns, they said, "Are you American?" They asked us straight out, like, "Are you American?" Because we were speaking English, and we said, "No, no, Canadian." They said, "Oh, thank goodness, we would have kicked you out of the store." It was a watch
Uh,
store. It's like,
yeah.
oh, and so it was just like being on guard on that was not fun. and it just felt dangerous in some ways. So social,
Oh, oh.
yeah.
I want to really give a moment for that.
Hmm.
It's a big deal, huh? I mean,
I've never
do you
had.
know?
First time since Trump
Yeah,
was elected. The second time Trump was elected is the only time I've felt I needed to do that overseas.
yeah. It's a big deal because the first victims of oppression and tyranny are always internal before they become external. Do you
Mm,
know? Before the English destruction or what became the British Empire. Well, before the British Empire, it was the English Empire that was attacking the Welsh and the Scots and the Irish. And before it came to me, it came to them. Do you know?
mhm,
And if we look at fascism as anywhere, before it goes to other countries, it first decides how to strengthen itself internally. Do you
mhm,
know? The
mhm.
amount of Germans that were killed by Nazis because they refused to accept this. Do you know?
Mhm.
I know that that's a really hot potato in America right now, but we've touched on it before that there are Americans losing their lives resisting this. What would really make me really mad is if the behaviors of people were actually acting in a way that would make me bitter or actually really make me rage, you know? Because clearly you're not a fan of this this guy, and that's really clear. And I suspect most people traveling, generally who travel the world, aren't, but that's maybe a little bit unfair because a lot of people are poor and resisting him but can't travel the world, do you know?
Yes, yes, I'm sure I will fall into some of that stigma and stereotyping just because I'm American. Interestingly, my mother's German, and
Okay,
she has always been judged for being German negatively, despite
right,
the fact that she was, a baby
right,
during Hitler's regime and had certainly nothing to do with it, nor did support it. But all
yeah,
of her life, she's dealt with that. So she's always felt shame and embarrassment and shared it with me that she wishes she hadn't been born into her country, into her family, at that time. And so that has always stayed with her. It's negatively impacted her whole life. And so I just find it interesting, if their plan is to disempower us, like
mm,
that's one way to do it, to make people feel shame for being
mm.
alive.
Isn't that, but it goes back to the idea, like none of us choose where we're born. None of us choose the ideologies that are imposed on us. None of us choose the creed or the religions, and yet we're expected to somehow spend the rest of our life defending it. And and then when we decide not to, they can face a lot of shame in our own communities.
Hmm.
But yeah, absolutely, it's not. It's a. I've always said that I can say this more in an age in a brown man's concept, right? That I'm always an ambassador for brown people. Do you know? And you can't say that enough when you're conscious of many people are conscious of the moment they're followed around a store, or do you know, or there's a moment in a car, and you could say you asshole because especially if it's my fault, but I'm a brown asshole. It's more than that.
Hmm.
I'm being polite, but it'll be something asshole. And if it's my fault, then call me an asshole. But my nationality has nothing to do with it, nor does my skin color. Do you know? Do you know? Not really. And so you're always the ambassador for those moments, aren't you? And you can't hide that. You can't really hide it. But in certain contexts, I guess you can hide it, but it's painful when you're reminded of things, no?
Hmm.
I'd be really interested in how other people navigate. So this touches on for me the conversations that we sometimes talk about when you look at ADHD and the phenomenon that's seen as rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Hmm. Hmm.
I really like to talk about these things just because I want to know, are they deeply connected to autism or ADHD, and more so than people who do not see themselves as ADHD? So
Hmm.
do people with ADHD get far more rejection sensitive dysphoria, far more pain in their bodies than others?
Hmm.
I would really lean towards saying I think that's true, but I really want to not pathologize. I really want to know. I only know what I know. And when I know that someone's been really mean or rejected, it really goes through me. It can
Hmm.
really stay with me for days and days. Uh,
Hmm.
my wife can has a really amazing habit of not shaking it off. And if they don't mean anything to her, then she doesn't register this sense of care at all. Do you know? It,
Interesting.
yeah, she's like, well, I don't owe them anything. Why am I worried about who their name is? For me, I'm totally broken. I'm like, oh my God, you know, there's this one thing and I haven't pleased this one person, you know. Uh,
Yes. Yes. I don't love the dysphoria aspect of it because it does pathologize it quite a bit, but I believe that many people are rejection sensitive more so than others. And I don't know if I believe that it's biologically connected to ADHD, but I do think people who have experience with ADHD probably have experienced thousands more times of feeling misunderstood or undervalued or, embarrassed or the shame of the actual rejections. I think it's based in actual rejection. And so that
yeah,
could probably lead to people who experience trauma or abandonment. And I imagine that rejection sensitivity would come up for them too. But I will admit, embarrassingly, if there's one moment that I've replayed from my entire trip, it is that woman on the train and her snarky, rejecting tone and how small I felt. And the rest why does my brain spot like that? I've been in tears. It's been days. It's been almost a week since that happened. I still talk about it and ruminate on it. So that's a part of my brain I really dislike is that rejection sensitivity. But I think it happens for some people maybe only or especially when it's people they very much care about. For example, a child or a parent and rejection from them, how that lands and really hurts physically and emotionally. But I do see it more with my ADHD clients for sure.
and,
Uh,
and and it's a mirror reflection on I'm in deep denial that like the pathology side of things, we talk about that a lot. So I'm in denial that, and I'm okay to be wrong. I'm in denial that it's a specific thing to ADHD and autism, and I think it's more of a specific thing to people who have been injured in
mhm,
their lives,
mhm, mhm,
and particularly their childhood. I
mhm,
think it's a specific thing to people who, in that injury, they are people pleasers
mhm.
and they define their experience through people pleasing, which is a good thing.
Sometimes.
Um, sometimes, yeah, mostly. But I also in awe of people who can balance that, and they're not rude. They're just straight up about what they let in and what they don't. And having such a filter is really important. It's healthy. It's self-love.
Mhm,
But I guess for the audience listening, and use the chat as you will, because we will watch it all. But to think about your rejection sensitive dysphoria as an American traveling through the world, being answerable for things you have no say in. In fact, perhaps the opposite, things that you are desperately trying to reject yourself, and yet you're being judged as an American. How does that affect your rejection sensitivity dysphoria? Use the chat. If you're an autistic person watching this, and the nuances of what's happening, which they are really important. Are they different in your world? And in what way? I would really want to know. I know that what's been on my mind is often conflicts as we look at, and I look at Lebanon and Iran and what's happening there. And I know it distills me, distill is not the right word. It shakes me
mhm,
each day.
mhm.
But I also really glued to knowing what is it that's happening to people and how can I serve them, you know, and in what way. But I also got wondering about this week, and I suppose it's a sort of a question for me and towards the end of what we're talking about today. But I was thinking a lot about conflicts and how some people, like, so I don't know how you deal with it in terms of ADHD and autism. But as far as I'm aware, I'm not autistic at all, but I'm definitely strong on the dyslexia, strong on the dyspraxia, and definitely strong on the ADHD. So I was working with somebody who needed to meet me 3 times in order to plan for a podcast. And I really like this man. He's a really decent human being. And I was just like, wow, it's really tiring. I got to do this twice in order. Whereas the best thing I can do is just freestyle when I just arrive on the podium, as it were. Do you know? That's worked for me, but could not work for this person naturally because of the autism.
Yes.
And it got me thinking about that such. care for this person. I think it works. But what would happen if somebody who's autistic, really, really regimental, meets my ADHD, sees it as neglect when it's not, sees it as irritable, it might be, see it as uncaring, which is definitely not,
No.
you know, and interpret that. And how would our relationships function,
Mhm.
you know? And I
Mhm.
don't know what it is to be both ADHD and autistic. I don't know if that's a clash of civilizations in your mind or not.
Sometimes, although what you're referring to when I talked about the presentation early this morning, this came up where an ADHDer works very well with urgency and on the in the moment improvisationally wanted to present something for the team. And there were people on the team, I don't know if they were autistic or just wanted a little bit more preparation and time to digest and process the information, said, "We need to see these slides before you present them." And the ADHD was like, no, 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 I got it. Trust me. It's going to show when at the
Yeah,
moment you need it, it
yeah,
will happen. So does that person's needs matter more than the team who was feeling some anxiety
yeah,
and some resentment was going back and forth and it did harm their relationship. And so I was suggesting that in that moment the leader, the manager, the supervisor, the team lead, whatever, could maybe help navigate that. And first of all, make sure that everyone knows that everyone's needs do matter and that these folks for their nervous system require a little bit more prep time and time to process and time to prepare, while as this person does very much enjoy the urgency and enjoy the
yeah,
spontaneity. And how can we honor the opposing needs and find some compromise, if you will, that meets everybody in the middle. But I think the first step would be to honor and to recognize where people's needs are and for people to express it. For you to express that you prefer to just do the podcast without any
yeah.
practice, and then for your friend to express that he really needs at least three meetings. How can you meet in the middle?
Yes, yeah. Totally. Mostly my way around it is just give them what they want, you know? And just, but I also say, and I mean, we've done a few of these, so, I never know what we're going to talk about. I just know what I feel, And I
I
sense
find
the
out one
room.
minute before because you
Yeah, yeah.
see.
So, and that works for us, right? It works for us. And folks, whatever we're saying here, this is as unrehearsed as it gets, There's a reason for that because it comes from the heart. It's not scripted. It's not trying to make this about likes and stuff. But there is something about the impact we make, and we can measure that. But yeah, absolutely, it's unscripted, and I work that way, you know.
Yep.
Um, but I don't. There is a day, so I've come to be aware of a day, and I'm gonna just name check someone who's dear to my heart. Has recently become a friend, a man named Jerk. He is in Amsterdam,
I know.
and he's one of many people working on neurodiversity pride,
Mm-hmm.
and that's on the 16th of June. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, of course, we should always have neurodiversity pride, and that's a day for every day, really. But what I've come to understand about this day is that it's also an opportunity for people to say sorry to other people that they have may have let down. Now, we can't really say sorry for things that the way we're built, but we can say sorry. Like, I'm sorry that this had an impact on you. I'm sorry that my recognition or my way of orientating the world
Mm-hmm.
wasn't quite what made this work, but it wasn't intentional. And I'm really excited that we can mend our friendship through it, or we can strengthen our friendship through it. I really like that there are
Mm-hmm.
neurodiverse folks who should be making time to say sorry to other neurodiverse folks and hold that space together rather than pitting their needs against each other. Do you know?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if I would describe it as saying sorry or apologizing as much as I think of it as a mutual responsibility and mutual respect.
yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I met with Chirk in
Uh,
person. I went
are
to
you,
Amsterdam and he
I've
said
read it.
this would make him laugh to know that I'm talking about this. He said, "Let's go take a walk in my favorite park. I'll show you these sculptures that I love of mermaids or swans. I don't know what they were because they didn't exist. And he says, I'm sure it was here. I said, Chirk, you're taking me on a walk through a park to see these, imaginatory, I don't know, sculptures. Anyhow, it was funny. It was funny that everything he said was
And
going
they
to
weren't there. They weren't there the whole time.
they
Brilliant.
just they disappeared. They disappeared. And so I always
That's brilliant because there was a night where they were definitely there, and
I,
that's
I
just brilliant.
believe you, Jerk. Anyhow, so
Yeah.
now I tell him anytime I meet with him, I'll take a walk to see an
Oh,
imaginative
that's lovely.
sculpture.
I absolutely love that. Absolutely, Pasha, that's wonderful. Listen, I'm gonna finish up, I think, but I just want to ask you as I would and invite you. But in this mayhem of week of a ballroom clearly coming our way or your way, um, what is it that keeps you hopeful? You know?
I mean, today it was talking to a organization in Italy who didn't know anything but wanted to learn everything, and that kept me hope keeps me hopeful. Um, my son is graduating from high school in a couple years, and I think I've barely mentioned that he was sick for so many years I didn't even know if he'd be alive to see this day. So I'm grateful, and my gratitude is keeping me hopeful. Uh, yeah, and getting to talk to you today. Um,
Ah, good, good, yeah. For me, yeah, today's one is a really simple one. The sun is shining, and I know that's, a bit twee, but it's true. I had a nice barefoot walk with my dog today, and I find him deeply forgiving, especially when I'm on the phone, and I sometimes look and think, dude, I owe you time without my phone.
oh,
I will make this up, you know? And then I had a moment where the people are on a conference call, and my dog got a stick, just because he loves wrestling with me. When I lift the stick up like this, we do this. So I put it on loudspeaker, and I just put my phone on the floor. I could hear what they're saying, but they couldn't see. There was a video, so I was just wrestling with my dog, and I was just thinking, what a life! I'm in a meeting right now, and I'm just wrestling with my dog, and I can hear what's going on, but I'm in barefoot on the grass. This is a sunny day. This is my day, do you know? So there
yeah.
was that. My second thing is that you're here as always, and it excites me. And you're on a car, your internet is hanging out of a house, it's not working in a house, but you're managing in your car on a laptop, and I just think, well, look, that's the best, that's what we do, right? We respond to need rather than counseling. We just press up, share the truths, deal with our realities. It's brilliant. I wish more people did it, don't you?
Yes, I felt like this was the most neuro-inclusive thing to do because we are always, talking about how we should do things differently, how we shouldn't always work in a conformative way to the standards and norms that have always existed. I know that the standard and norm is to do a podcast inside with a ring light and a microphone.
Yeah.
Um, but the alternative was to not share with people. So it felt like, okay, can we do this differently?
Mm.
And is that okay? And if we weren't talking about neurodiversity, I might not be as compelled. But
Uh,
but I'm so glad we are.
Good, good. And for your background, you can't tell and you won't see it from my eyes, but behind you, it looks like there's an NFL game happening, do you know? And it's just so the most American thing I can see in the background.
It's
At
like
least,
elementary school children at recess
oh,
kicking
okay.
a
From here,
soccer
it just
ball.
looks like you're outside this NFL game. So that's very an American thing that we grew up looking
And
at and not
and I'm in my
understanding.
truck. I'm in a
Yes,
pickup.
yeah. So it's the most American thing I
That's
can see.
hilarious. That's
Um, but brilliant, Pasha. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're gonna do more of these, of course, and we are gonna invite guests. But for now, we're just enjoying this little ride that we're having with you all. Take care.
absolutely. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.